In the past few decades, the Middle East has been swallowed by conflict. The Persian Gulf War, for example, or the Arab Spring, Israel, Syria. Now, relations between these countries and the United States are going downhill. Oil has been a major deciding factor in U.S. and Middle Eastern relations for nearly a century. In 1973, OPEC attempted to gain influence over the United States when it embargoed oil. During this time, oil prices shot up by up to 400% of what it had been. Gas prices shot up. Commercial lighting was restricted and even banned. Many gas stations stopped selling gas on weekends. A new national speed limit was introduced. As a result of the energy crisis, the United States has been investigating new energy sources for half a century. Now, they have alternative energy sources: nuclear energy, solar energy, wind energy, biofuels, geothermal energy, hydrogen fuel, hydroelectric energy. All of these are examples of new types of energy to fuel the vast needs of the United States. Advancements in the propeller designs of wind farms, in particular, in 2023, have made great progress in alternative energy, and studies of other possible energy sources continue today. NASA claims that cold fusion may be a reality within the next decade. Solar energy shows great promise as well, and the United States has plans to institute NASA's designs. However, these new types of energy are distancing the United States from the Arab world. Traditionally, the United States has always been dependent on foreign oil to fuel the needs for energy. But the emergence of new energy sources has meant that the United States no longer needs foreign oil. Trade relations with the Middle East are slowly disappearing as the United States builds up its new energy grid after the reforms under President Ian Orksberg. As the United States looks toward its future of energy independence, it is leaving behind a century of traditional relations with the Middle East. Israel was created as a direct result of World War II, as fleeing Jews from Germany had nowhere to go, nowhere to run to. They were turned back repeatedly and had no choice but to live in the horrendous conditions that awaited them in Germany. So, the newly formed United Nations created the Jewish state of Israel in 1948. However, the land that became Israel is also known by another name, Palestine. Since ancient times, this land has been under the control of many different peoples. It has been contested for thousands of years, and that hasn't changed today. Many Arabs view Israel as stolen land that should be given back to its proper owners. On May 15th, 1948, the newly formed country of Israel was already fighting for its life. The very day of its inception, it was attacked by a coalition of several Arab countries. Israel managed to survive, but the aggression didn't stop there. On October 16th, 1973, it was the holiest day of the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur. Egypt and Syria attacked Israel on this day, and they were supported by several other Arab nations. Initially, they were able to make some headway, but they were then turned back and routed. Israel was victorious. Throughout the course of its history, Israel has been unwanted. It has been attacked multiple times by opposing Arab countries. To survive, Israel has had to militarize its entire society. Everyone had to be prepared to go to war at any time, but it wasn't enough. Israel is what it is today because of nearly a century of United States support. We have given them funds. We have given them war support. We have given them weapons. President Ian Orksberg's son, Ian Orksberg Jr., has stated that military and economic support of Israel will continue, as Israel is a very important military foothold for the United States. Although Israel is one of the United States' most prominent Middle Eastern allies, it has made the United States enemies as well. Because of the United States' support during the Yom Kippur War, OPEC embargoed the United States. More recent events include a cyber attack in 2020 from remaining terrorist groups still in the area when they tried to hack into various banking systems across the United States. This attack was somewhat reminiscent of a series of attacks in 2013, also of Middle Eastern origin. There have been other incidents as well. To this day, there remains anger and dislike toward the United States in those countries. And with President Ian Ortberg Jr.'s decision to keep support of Israel strong, United States and Middle Eastern relations remain poor today. These relations could possibly deteriorate even more in the future as the United States continues to support Israel. Before the Second World War, the United States' relationship with the Middle East was actually rather minimal. During this time, Americans were seen as good people who did not take over and colonize other lands, unlike European powers such as France and England. During World War II, however, the United States began a transition from a net exporter of oil to a net importer of oil. The United States began to see the Middle East as a very strategically important area to its interests. After the World War II period, Americans began to direct their interests toward Middle Eastern affairs, eventually leading to several conflicts between the United States and the Middle East. One of the first issues the United States became embroiled in was the creation of Israel in 1948, which at the time was recognized by no Arab nation. And from there, the United States' legacy in the Middle East began. In the years afterward, the United States meddled in the affairs of many other countries as well, and participated in the Persian Gulf War in 1990 to 1991, launched an international campaign, the War on Terror, to eliminate militant groups such as Al-Qaeda residing in the Middle East. The United States has also continually refused to let Iran continue its nuclear program. Although the UN has conducted investigations against Iran, the United States has taken it further. Since 2009, it has continually launched cyber attacks against Iran to prevent Iran from obtaining suspected nukes, which would lead to a crisis in the region. In 2032, the United States, along with Israel, threatened to take any necessary actions if any evidence of a bomb is discovered. United States and Israeli forces have remained on high alert for the past 30 years. Over the years, the United States' involvement in the Middle East affairs have created a large amount of tension between the United States and numerous countries. Tensions only become more stressed as the United States continually keeps watch over the Middle East, and the United States has no plans to discontinue its involvement in the Middle East, even after falling dependence on oil. Today, the United States continues its involvement in Middle Eastern affairs. Over the past 30 years, oil has become almost obsolete in the United States. The disappearance of the United States' dependence on Middle Eastern countries and unceasing involvement will only lead to continuing deterioration of United States and Middle Eastern relations as they have over the past century.